We're taking a live picture right now where we're expecting President Trump to appear before a judge in just a matter of minutes. He and his motorcade have arrived at a D.C. courthouse for a hearing on his federal election interference case. A three-judge panel will hear arguments on whether Mr. Trump is protected by presidential immunity.
Yeah, the former president saying the case should be thrown out because his efforts to overturn the 2020 election were part of his official duties as president. Federal prosecutors say those actions were not official duties of the office. And for our panel today, we want to bring them in. Let's bring in Dr. Liberty Bitter, Joel Rubin, and Jennifer Coffendorfer to discuss. Joel, let me just let you kick this one off here as we kind of, watch these images come in live. We're waiting for this hearing to get underway. As you know, Trump saying, hey, I was president. I had a right to look for voter fraud. I had a right to question the system. How solid is his defense and his team's argument here?
Well, Mark, it looks like Donald Trump is always trying to find a way to not be held accountable. Remember when he said he's a candidate, therefore he can't face the music and he can't be prosecuted. Now he's saying, oh, I was an official and I can't be prosecuted. He needs to make his mind up. What is he? What was he? From a legal perspective, though, without a doubt, one can't just overthrow the Constitution and then claim protection from it and because of it. I mean, it's just you can hear the circular logic here. At the end of the day, when somebody is the president of the United States, they need to uphold the laws of the United States, and nobody is above the law. We don't elect a king. And if he is found to actually have done these acts, and I believe he has, he should be held accountable. Just because one is president doesn't mean that they get to rip up the Constitution.
But, Liberty, it has not been said that he's done those acts. So I guess, Liberty, the question is, doesn't Mr. Trump have a right to say, listen, I really thought I was acting in the best interest of the people who elected and cast a ballot, that, hey, there had been fraud, and I want to find out if it's true?
Nick, I think I understand what Joel's saying, but I also think the American people, and the polling is showing this, the American people are tired of this, that this accusation after accusation is just getting too tired. And what a lot of the Democrats are trying to do is to hurt his polling. And I hear people say, is this going to be the thing that hurts Trump? Is this going to be the thing that takes him out? And it doesn't. All it does is bolster him with his base. So I think regardless of what anyone wants to have happen, what is happening is good for Trump with his polling base when these accusations keep coming at him.
Yeah. Jennifer, what say you on all of this as it's happening live? And to Liberty's point, people are tired with the system as a whole on both sides of the aisle, everything that's happening for both of these political frontrunners right now. As we inch closer to November, voters' palates for this. I mean, what say you?
Well, I really appreciate the arguments made by both Liberty and Joel on this, and I see both sides quite clearly. But I do think that at the end of the day, it would be irresponsible for immunity to be granted on this basis, based on the fact that that would just open the door for presidents, senators, elected officials to commit all sorts of crimes. And I just think that that's very wrong. By the way, President Trump was not the first to ever be arrested. It was Ulysses S. Grant for speeding his buggy throughout the streets of Washington, D.C. A much lesser crime, but he was still charged.
Yeah. We'll keep that history in mind as we move forward in today.
We will also continue to follow this. We don't expect to hear from the former president today, but of course, if something happens while we're on with you guys, we will want you to weigh in. I do want to switch topics, though. New information this morning on what may have caused the door plug on an Alaskan Airlines flight to blow out midair, leaving a hole in the plane. Here's a look at that Boeing 737 MAX 9 plane after landing last week in Portland, Oregon. Now, the MAX 9 fleet in the U.S. is now grounded as investigations get underway. Both Alaska and United Airlines say they found loose bolts. This follows MAX 8 crashes in 2018 and 2019 that killed nearly 350 people. Liberty, I'm just going to jump right in there with you. What is it that we need to hear as consumers to feel safe?
I think we shouldn't trust Boeing at this point. You know, if you remember, speak of the devil, 2018, 2019, President Trump grounded the Boeing 787 MAXs because they were dangerous, because of those two crashes that killed people that were statistically improbable. Boeing didn't do it. The FAA didn't do it, even while Boeing knew that there were errors and issues with the planes. It was really shameful. And now we're seeing even more outrageous issues. It was pure luck that someone didn't die in this Alaskan Airlines, that no one was sitting in that row. And we're not going to see luck again. So statistically speaking, there is something wrong with these planes that Boeing needs to come forward with.
Yeah. You know, Joel, post-COVID, we talked for years about how thinly stretched the airline industry is, from air traffic controllers to the pilots to the crews, their schedules being stretched thin. Is this fallout, do you think, from that? Or is this something totally different?
Well, you know, Marky, I'm with Liberty on this bipartisan outrage. Look, Boeing has come to Washington for billions of dollars in public bailouts. They have the funds, they have the resources. We've been essentially underwriting their financial viability for years. And the fact that they can't do basic safety checks to ensure that there aren't loose bolts should be deeply concerning to all of us. This is not about passengers being on the flights or having to cancel flights because of lack of use. This is basic safety measures. And I think these executives who are getting very large salaries, paid for, again, largely by us through our tax dollars, they need to be held accountable. There need to be hearings about why is it that Boeing is getting all this money and they don't have planes that are safe to fly.
And Jennifer, with fewer choice for consumers, it seems like we have fewer options and places to turn. So many flights were canceled over the weekend. In the end, it's the consumer who seems to lose.
Well, yeah, it is the consumer. And certainly there are all of these dangers. And I tell you what, growing up in the air capital of the world, Wichita, Kansas, which was the home of Boeing for decades, with friends, neighbors, family members that worked for them, I tell you, there is just human error involved. Yeah. We hear about those stories of medical physicians that leave the gauze in somebody after a surgery. I mean, these are people who come out of high school, they work for Boeing, and they don't tighten the bolts. I mean, sadly, I think this was a situation of human error.
Yeah, I think with anything, you bring up a great point, Jennifer. I was going to, mention that too. With anything man-made, nothing is foolproof. Even the Titanic was thought to be unsinkable, but it certainly does make you wonder what it does to consumer confidence as we move forward. Dr. Liberty Vittert, Joel, Jennifer, thank you so much.